Good morning everyone, my name is Rita Chincott, I'm the HR Director here at Swinburne and I'm very happy to be your MC this morning for Swinburne's Mental Health Week, so welcome. I would like to begin this morning by respectfully acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I also pay my respects to all Aboriginal community elders past and present. A very warm welcome to you all as we return from a lovely Anzac Day long weekend here in Melbourne. And we come together to kick off our inaugural Swinburne Mental Health Week. Swinburne is committed to preventing and providing support for mental health issues. Your mental health and wellbeing can have a huge impact on your work and home life. Stress, anxiety and depression can impact many of us at various times in our lives. Optimising your wellbeing and learning about mental health issues and seeking help as early as possible is an important part of prevention and recovery. Swinburne's Mental Health Week aims to create awareness of mental health issues, reduce the stigma associated with mental health issues, and promote resources, information and services that are available to our Swinburne community. Launching today, there will be various events for staff and students to attend throughout the entire week. We'll have the opportunity to hear a little bit more about the events throughout the course of this morning. What we'd like to do to kick it off is actually show you a video from Professor Greg Murray, here a Professor of Psychology here at Swinburne University, and it's about the research that he and his team have been leading on interventions on bipolar disorders. Thank you.
So my name's Greg Murray, I'm a Professor of Psychology at Swinburne University. The project that I'm doing that I'm most excited about is this one that the National Health and Medical Research Council has just funded for us to do. It's a 4-year study where we're refining and then testing an online intervention for bipolar disorder. Sometimes with serious mental disorders like bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, I think the public and professionals and people themselves can get caught up in sort of the seriousness of the diagnosis and forget the person. And so this research that we're doing is very much about developing a new psychological therapy, it's new in various ways, to really focus on the well-being of the person with bipolar disorder. In fact, the ultimate aim of this intervention isn't to prevent relapse or decrease symptoms of bipolar disorder. The ultimate aim of this intervention is to help people cope better with their bipolar disorder, to carry that problem better and to end up with better quality of life. So the 2 or 3 innovative elements of this that really aren't present at all in existing interventions are these. Firstly, we are distinguishing people depending on how many episodes of bipolar disorder they've had. And this intervention is targeting those people who've had 10 or more episodes. And why we think that might be important is once you've had quite a few episodes of bipolar disorder, the current psychological treatments may not be beneficial for you. In fact, they may make you feel worse because the current psychological treatments say, manage your stress, watch out for early signs of relapse, and then do things differently and prevent relapse. But if you're someone who's had 10 or 15 or 20 episodes, that may not be such a realistic suggestion. And instead, maybe what you should be doing is trying to pay attention to what you value in life, putting your energies into those things, making sure that you're getting a good quality of life despite your episodes. The benefits for the Swinburne community are that when you get a large project like this, you start to bring in international and national expertise. People bring assumptions to it because it's not common, because a treatment is medication, because there's a strong genetic component to it. I think that activates a certain type of thinking in people. Just like any other description of a person, I'm a bit anxious, I don't sleep well, I'm having troubles at work, or my relationship's not going that well, I have bipolar disorder. All of these things are just descriptions of people, And the person is almost always a much bigger part of our understanding than that label itself. It's about remembering that the person in front of you is a person first and they have bipolar disorder second.
It's always amazing to watch. I actually watched that last night. It makes me intensely proud to be part of a university that does that kind of research, and bipolar is one aspect obviously of mental health and the myriad of issues that our community have to deal with, and people that we may know, loved ones, friends, family. It's something that does touch us all. So thanks again for coming along to listen this morning. I'm going to now introduce you to our first speaker. So our Vice-Chancellor, Professor Linda Christensen, is passionate about all aspects of health and in particular mental health. Linda will share her insights with us about mental health and how we can best support our students and our colleagues. Please join me in welcoming Professor Linda Christensen.
Thank you very much, Rita, and it's great to see the early birds here this morning on such a beautiful morning. I'd like to begin today by respectfully acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land where we meet today, the Wurundjeri and the Burungan people of the Kulin Nation. I also pay my respects to all Aboriginal community elders, past and present, who've resided in the area, who have been an integral part of the history of this region. Mental health is an issue that affects so many of us. We all know someone who has experienced poor mental health at some point in their life. And there are probably many of us who've experienced a mental health condition of which we're not aware. Unlike physical illness, mental illness cannot be seen. Often people suffer in silence. And to others on the outside, we may just see these people as showing signs of stress or seeming a little reserved or perhaps socially different. For many people, admitting publicly that they are struggling with a mental health issue is seen as a sign of weakness, an indication that they're not coping. Now, we never make these same judgments about ourselves when we have a physical illness, and it's important that we look at our own attitudes and the attitudes and judgments that are circulating in the wider society. Just last week, Beyond Blue released a new report that found 1 in 5 Australians believe that people with anxiety are putting it on. This needs to change. We need to reduce the stigma around mental health conditions. We need to raise awareness of mental health conditions. But most importantly, we need to have a conversation, one that sparks a change. As we go about our day-to-day lives, it's important that we remember to check in with our friends, our family, and our co-workers. Taking time to chat with someone, asking how they're going, and simply being there to listen can make all the difference. For most people, mental health conditions don't go away. They just become more manageable. Statistics show that 1 in 4 young Australians are currently experiencing a mental health condition. As an institution with thousands of young people, it's important that we are leaders in the mental health space. University students are going through a time in their lives when they're experiencing a significant amount of stress, moving out of home, exams, assignments, new living arrangements, and reduced income. These are the types of life events that could trigger a mental health issue. We have many excellent resources through Swin Health that are available to our students and our staff. Glenda Langford and the health team here do an exceptional job of giving the Swinburne community access to a range of services that can improve people's mental and physical health. The counselling service is a clear example of that. Swinburne students from Croydon, Winturna, and Hawthorn have access to free, confidential counselling from a trained professional. They can access this service once or as regularly as they need. Students can book in a time and speak to a qualified counsellor who is objective, who's skilled, compassionate, and separate to their everyday life about whatever is on their mind. This is such an extremely valuable resource for both our paid and our higher education students. And one of the services that I really appreciate is that students are also able to speak to a counsellor via Skype, if that is their preference, from a space where they're comfortable at a time that suits them. This also means that our online students can access the service. Swinburne has always prided itself on being an inclusive university, and this is just another way that we are making sure that our students feel connected and included in the Swinburne family. Another worthwhile initiative offered to our staff is our 2-day mental health first aid training course. This course educates participants on the signs and symptoms of mental health problems. The course also gives you information on where to get help and what sort of help is most effective. If you haven't already, I'd encourage you to sign up for one of these courses through your development. As some of you may know, I come from a background in the health sector myself, and I am a strong believer of the view that your physical and mental health are connected. That's why it makes good sense that we offer a range of services that can have a positive impact on your overall well-being. We have free weekly yoga, Pilates, and meditation classes run out of our Hawthorn Campus, as well as partnerships with the Hawthorn Aquatic and Leisure Centre that give staff and students free use of our swimming pool. Our students also have access to a free doctor service, campus nurse, and sexual health advice. As a student with limited funds, these services are invaluable. For anyone who has regular interaction with our student body, I would encourage you to remind students of these services, as well as look out for times when you might notice that they need some extra support. I would also encourage you to consider how these services could help you. Along with the nurses, doctors, and counselling services, Swinburne also has 3 psychiatrists on campus and a career counsellor. These can be valuable resources when you're facing stressful situations in your own work and personal life. So, as we gather here this morning on this beautiful sunny day to raise awareness of mental health, I hope that you take time to speak with your colleagues and see how they are going today, and think about how you can help reduce the stigma around mental health in your own team at Swinburne. I hope you enjoy the rest of the morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. Our next speaker is Ingrid Ozols. Ingrid is the founder and managing director of Mental Health at Work. Ingrid is well qualified to talk about mental health with a Master of Suicidology, Master of Mental Health Science, Graduate Diploma in Community Mental Health, and a Postgraduate Diploma in Mental Health Recovery and Social Inclusion. Ingrid continues to contribute to mental health research and prevention of suicide. As an active advocate for many years for mental health, Ingrid has participated on many national boards, committees, and advisory groups. These have included the Mental Health Council of Australia during the COAG deliberations, the Mental Health Commission, Beyond Blue's Blue Voices, the Consumer and Carer Arm, the Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Psychiatry, the General Practitioners Mental Health Standards Collaboration, and Wild at Heart. Ingrid travels nationally and internationally, speaking to many groups, facilitating forums and seminars and conferences on mental health issues, and recently spoke at TEDx University of Hertfordshire. A proud official ambassador of Lifeline's Stress Down Day, national annual fundraising campaign, Ingrid encourages others to talk about, share, educate and improve mental health literacy, promote suicide prevention and create safe cultures. Please give a warm welcome to Ingrid Ozols.
Thank you for the welcome. Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we stand and their past and present elders. Before I commence my presentation, I'd like to just put a little flag and hand up to say that I'm actually probably going to be coming close to home about what I share. So please, self-care. Look after yourselves. I am actually used to having the odd person walk out and then come back again. So if you feel like this is starting to get a bit close to home, feel free to go for a walk and then come back if you like. I was actually thinking about my daughter and myself, and I have to say I'm a biased mum. When she was little, even before then, I was reading to her all the time. And I probably looked a bit strange during the day when I was talking to my stomach. But I kept reading to her. And as she was child. We kept getting more and more into fairy tales and Shrek. Harry Potter was a big thing, and it still is, and she's 18, and I'm not going to say how old I am, but we still love those adventures. And I started thinking, well, what's the relevance of all these stories that not only am I sharing with her, but I share with other children in our families? They're similar to the ones I grew up with and the ones that my mother read. I've still got her collection of Eden Blyton books. And I'm thinking, why is it that this is something we all do, or many of our homes that we share with our children? And I thought, well, fairy tales and stories like these have adventures, have a moral to their story. There's pain, there's fun, there's all sorts of stuff going on. And I started to think, this is a nice way to prepare our children for life. Life can be painful, can have hair-raising adventures. To be human is to experience love, joy, loss, grief, frustration, injury, illness, love. We're all going to experience it in different ways. I can attest to those hair-raising adventures, pain, probably much like you can here today. We've all got those experiences. Our stories might be different, our context and content is different, but we're all still human. And at the end of the day, that's actually what we're talking about. When we talk about mental health and physical health, we're talking about our humanness, and that it's okay. Sometimes we are going to be vulnerable. Sometimes we are going to be fragile, and that's okay. And we need to start to break some barriers down so that we can start to talk about those things in places such as our workplaces and such as our educational institutions, our schools and in community. I was thrilled last night to see the young royals out there on TV talking about their new campaign that they're getting involved in, mental health. I thought, yes, this is awesome. I've been a fossil in this industry now for 16 years and started when the Beyond Blue doors had just opened. And at the time, we weren't talking about any of this. And I know I was working as a HR manager, really struggling to know how to manage these things and feeling totally out of my league. And yet I knew there were issues beyond performance issues. I knew there were things going on. I had an antennae for it. I didn't have the skills on how to handle it or how to manage it for other people. And so I went looking. And I found there was actually nothing much out there. I was told, oh look, why don't you become a doctor, or why don't you go study psychology? Well, I didn't want to do any of those. So I became involved in Beyond Blue, never imagining that going to one focus group would change my life, change my career. And so that night, I recall, I was invited to have a chat after the focus group with three people. Professor Ian Hickey, who was a CEO at the time, Mr. Bernard McNair, who's now 16 years later my co-director of the company that we started, Mental Health at Work, and John McGrath, who had been the inaugural first chair of the Mental Health Council of Australia, which is the representative body of all of the mental health sector in the country. They became my friends, colleagues and mentors, and to this day I share wonderful relationships with them. So where does my passion come from? Well, going back to those stories and those adventures that I was relating to at the beginning, I can attest to a lot of the pain they're talking about, much like probably all of us in this room can. I've lived, I've loved, I've worked with too many people who've been touched by mental illness and suicide. My late mum, she was an executive in the 70s and 80s, and I look back and I think, how did she do it? She had bipolar disorder and was managing to work as a general manager in a Japanese company. And in between, she was spending a lot of time in psychiatric hospitals, in and out, having psychiatric ECT treatments. I grew up with that, and I was told, now, be careful with mum, she's got bad nerves. Let's not talk about it, let's not go there. Okay, so we don't say anything. I too started to have my first suicidal thoughts when I was 7. And yes, I also manage life with bipolar disorder and have tried to take my life on several occasions. But what's really pressed the buttons of passion is the pain of having had a poor system. My mother had terrible care. I'm one of the lucky ones who's had great care, and that's why I'm functioning and able to contribute in a world that I love being a part of. Just recently, my young teenage daughter came out of her 4th admission from a psych hospital just at the end of last year, and I sat in the clinic with her thinking, this is a lifeless, joyless, horrid place. It is time to change. This is just not acceptable. I was sitting there with her thinking, no wonder this is an awful place. It's joyless. There's nothing here but darkness. And to make matters worse, in 2015, not one family member went to visit her. Why? 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 I love my family, and I know our family loves us and loves our daughter, but no one went to visit her. And I'm ashamed of that. I'm ashamed for my child. I ache for my child that not one of her family members had the courage to go. And this was just last year. Year before that, the year before that, and the year before that. And I just don't think it's good enough anymore. And that's why I've been an advocate for years, because I'm sick and tired of the secrecy. It doesn't help us to put our heads under the sand and not go there because it's uncomfortable. Life isn't comfortable always. And that's okay. That's part of the journey. That's part of the adventures that come out, and if we live through and survive those, we can survive anything. So it is now time to have those conversations, because interestingly what happened was when she did text one friend who had the courage to come to visit her, they would come in and text another friend and say, you know, it's not that bad. It's actually not got any white padded rooms and cells. No one's in straitjackets. Suddenly, not just one friend walked in the door, another friend walked in the door. A third friend walked in the door. They were willing to come to see her. Families still kept away. Even though they texted us or rang us, they still did not send a card or flowers. Now, if you and I had cancer, if we had heart disease, if we had a back injury, if we broke our legs, we'd be inundated with attention. We'd be inundated with love. And yet at the time when we need to be connected, when our young people are killing themselves at a higher rate than ever before, when they're self-harming, when they're in trouble, we stay away. But that's when we are needed most. The connectedness is really, really critical. That was part of the reason why I set up Mental Health at Work 16 years ago. And I understand, looking back then, I was laughed at for starting a business to educate workplaces around mental health issues in the workplace. But I knew from all my learnings, working with community, working with researchers, working with our medical professionals, that there was still not enough attention given to mental health awareness, mental health literacy, and suicide prevention. So promotion wasn't even on the agenda, which it now is, and I'm so proud of Swinburne for saying it's part of promotion and prevention, because there's no necessarily a cure. Some people will be able to have one episode in life and not experience another one. But the reverse is true also. Many of us do have to manage life with these challenges. And it's not always a going up, straight up line of recovery. It can be up and down. Certainly is with bipolar, and throw in life's challenges, and yes, it can be quite fun swinging from tree to tree, not always. So from my own journey of illness to wellness and illness and wellness and back and forward, I've learnt so much about myself. The more I know, the less I fear. And the more I can share with others, the less we fear as a community. And I do these as a very selfish reason. When I started, I have to say, I used to be sick before a presentation and sick after a presentation. Even though I try and make it look easy, it really isn't. Though I can honestly say today, 16 years and many thousands of workshops later, I feel more empowered. because I know this isn't my story that I'm telling. This is our story. It's just we haven't had the courage or the place to talk about it before. We haven't been allowed to. Society's always had this notion that when you work, you have one side of your persona out, that's okay, and then when you're at home, you can have another persona, and it's a different one, and the two shall not meet. And yet in reality, of course they meet. We can't slice ourselves in half. As Linda said before, you know, we are one being. We are physical health and mental health. They go together. So we have to have some conversations, no matter how uncomfortable. And once we're educated and better understand that if we can overcome stigma and fear and open ourselves to learning, we can actually help ourselves and each other. We don't have to be medically qualified. We don't have to have clinical degrees to be able to reach out and make a difference and connect with one another. So in sharing my story, my hope is to say I'm opening a door. I'm opening a door to give us all permission to say it's okay to be human. And sometimes we're going to struggle in life. We might get hit by some unexpected event that occurs in our lifetimes that's going to knock us over. For some of us, we won't get knocked over totally, but others, we will be. And so we need to be able to go with the flow, so to speak, and be able to handle those particular situations. And how we do that is the more we know each other, the more we communicate and learn what to say and not to say. And if we think about it, if we were going to visit our auntie who has cancer with a bunch of flowers and talk to her, would we tell her to get over it? Highly unlikely, unless we want to be bopped on the head with the flowers. If we went and visited an uncle who had a heart attack, we wouldn't tell them that he talked himself into it, would we? So why do we think we can when it's people with a mental illness, that we've talked ourselves into it? I can honestly tell you this is not something I choose. My mother didn't choose this, and nor did my daughter. And she will often say to me, "Mum, I didn't ask for this." The challenge is, how do we as a community help each other to connect? Well, education is one way. From that, if we can learn how to communicate honestly, openly, and say, you know what, that doesn't feel comfortable. I'm not comfortable with that. Let's talk about these issues. As Aussies, how many of us don't go around during the day and say, "Hi, how are you?" How many of us actually stop to listen? How many of us are willing to listen? And what if someone said, "Actually, I'm feeling terrible. I've had this, and this occur." Or what if I burst out crying? What would we do? We have to learn how to have those conversations. And part of suicide prevention and intervention is that we learn to say the S word and not be afraid of it, and not think, oh, if we mention suicide, we're going to start planting ideas into people's heads. That's furthest from the truth. Think about Lifeline. What is the person on the other side of the phone qualified as? They're qualified as you and me, humans first. They're not qualified necessarily as practitioners or clinicians. They're actually trained in listening. And I think you and I can do that. What I do know is, as human beings, we actually mean well. We want to help, we want to reach out. We just don't know how, especially when it's of the emotional, psychological nature. It is complex, it can be intense, it can be really hard to know what to say. But we don't have to fix anyone else's problems. That's not our role. That's not for us to do. That's for the person to do. But let's help that person find a journey that's going to allow them to contribute in whatever way that looks. I recall when I first saw my psychiatrist, family members would say, "Oh, Ingrid, are you popping happy pills? Oh, Ingrid, you have to pay to see someone to help you." Well, that's what suited me. Seeing a shrink is exactly what I needed for me, plus a whole range of other interventions, plus a whole range of other supports. So I'm here today because of the love and the support that I have in my family, my work. I have to say work has been fundamental in my wellness, particularly in being able to share journeys like this with other people. And for me, where my strength has come from is knowing that when I walk out of here and I leave a couple of business cards, there will be someone who will contact me later today and tomorrow and probably next week to say thank you. Thank you for letting me hear my story and letting me have permission to go and either see a doctor or think about this in a different way to the way I had before. If I can do that for one person, then that's made all of this worth it. If I can help one other parent who has had the awful, unenviable task of waiting 24/7 as to what's going to happen to their child, I know now that when I go to call up my daughter when she's in bed every morning, I say, "Hi, Amby. Good morning, Amby. Amby." If by the 5th time she doesn't answer, I can feel my throat constricting. And I think, okay, how many seconds do I give her to answer before I go up there? And what if I go up there? What if? When she answers, "Hi, Mum," on the 5th one, I can breathe. Okay, today's another day. We got through that day, we got through the night. It's a horrid feeling doing suicide watch 24/7. Our system isn't good enough. That's why, on the other hand, yes, I do a lot of workplace work, but I also stir the pot with government and with the medical sector because it's not good enough. Our system's broken. We can and we should be taking far more responsibility in changing the status quo, because every single one of us has the right to have great mental health care in this country, and we don't have it. So we should be out there screaming and saying, "Hang on, this needs to be better." We heard the stats before, and that's why I haven't used my slides, because the stats are up there, and I thought, no, I'm not going to go down the stats path. Stats are there, we know that. And in fact, just to put it into perspective, one person every 3 hours, every day, kills themselves in this country. So many more people think about it. We flood Lifeline with 3,000 calls a day, every single day of the year. Why are we going to Lifeline in droves? Yes, there's enormous shame. There's a sense if I say, "Look, I'm not feeling safe today," or if I'm not in a good space, that I'm weak. Yeah, I think I'm allowed to be weak if I'm worrying about my kid, if she's going to make it during the day. Some days I'm not. My kid's allowed to feel what she feels because she's been bullied at school. She's had a horrendous time at school. We all feel how we feel and we react in the way we react. There are ways, and Greg Murray actually spoke about the different interventions that are available. And that's actually the positive part that I do want to finish on, is that there are a whole range of positive things. But sometimes we all have to take stock and understand that life isn't going to be comfortable or easy, and that our journeys are really separate, and that we can actually get a lot of help by talking to each other, by collaborating, by working as a team. One last story before I actually finish off and take some questions. It was about 10 or 12 years ago, I was watching Andrew Denton's Enough Rope, and you can actually see this program, it's still on iView. He actually went and participated in one of our huge conferences that's actually been put on each year through people and families with the lived experience, and that's what we refer to as those of us who live with a mental health challenge or who care for someone who's touched by a mental health challenge. It used to be those of us attending. Now we have all walks of life attending, all professions, all academics. We're all in it together. And so Andrew took the courage to actually go down and spend a day with 600 people in Melbourne. He came out with the most beautiful documentary. It's called Angels and Demons. And I recall one night sitting at home watching it on the edge of my bed, and he was going through so many people that I knew. And then there were two people that caught my eye who I hadn't met yet. And it was Phil Huizenroder, who is the CEO of Wild at Heart, and he's also the manager of the Bipolar Bears band. And we have a wonderful band that all have bipolar, and they're fabulous. So I'm going to drop a hint here. If you need some entertainment at the university, Bipolar Bears are available. Phil also is a conductor of the Melbourne Mass Gospel Choir. And each voice is a voice that's recovering from some form of mental illness or an addiction. And it's the most beautiful, joyful music and community of people. There was a second individual that took me by the heartstrings, Heidi Everett. Now, she manages life with schizophrenia. And she was sharing with Andrew about the times when she was having psychotic episodes, that she would draw these amazing drawings. And then when she was well, she would be this amazing songwriter and singer. Now, one particular day, she was in Melbourne at Flinders Street Station having a psychotic episode. She sat down on the gutter by the tram stations and was crying. All she wanted was someone to hug her. I sat there on the bed that night and said, I'm going to find these two people and I'm going to hug this lady. Now, I never imagined 10 years later that I get all the hugs in the world. And yes, at the moment, I'm actually their acting chair on their board at Wild at Heart. They mentor my daughter. They are my daughter's angels and saviours. Music has connected my daughter into some of life's most precious gifts, human connectedness. Being able to reach out and have a Monday afternoon of non-psychiatric activities has been a saving grace. She didn't know how to play a guitar until she walked into the first songwriting class. And I have to tell you, when I took her out of the leafy suburbs of Kew here and took her out to the more less leafy suburbs of Melbourne, she wouldn't get out and go into one of the buildings. And she said, oh, Mum, I'm not going in with those oldies. And I said, they're all my age. And she would say, I'm not going in there. So I'd be texting Phil and Heidi, please help. I know we've just got to get her in there for 5 minutes and it'll be okay. This is a kid who will not leave the house, who hasn't left her room for weeks, who will not go to school, who will not function. I've got to get her in there. Now, it was scary. She was in amongst some very ill people, but they all sat around the room. We got her in there for 5 minutes and they started strumming a guitar. She actually started singing. And I thought, where did that come from? Where did that voice come from? And then Heidi gave her a couple of words. And I can encourage you to even go and Google Amber Rosol's Strawberry Red. There is a beautiful song that she has written after her first admission through songwriting of those two words that Heidi gave her, Strawberry Red. Now, Amber's happy to go and perform at the Prince of Wales Hotel every 4 months. She even went for X Factor. This is a kid who I could not get her out of the house. Challenge is that we now find that this is something that is so critical, not just to her, but to so many other people. All those people now, every time it comes towards Christmas, say, can we have an extra time? We don't want to miss these Monday afternoon get-togethers of just jamming and having fun. The challenge is this is one of our special organisations of thousands out there that are doing fabulous community work that makes a difference at the front end. Yes, we've got all this wonderful information around mental health now. We also have to go and access it. We've got to go find it out, look for it. There are some tremendous resources, and I'm so proud of what Jackie and everyone's been doing here with all the resources that you can gain access to. Use them, share them, get them out, talk about this. Talk about our sessions, talk about what you learned this week with one other person, 2 other people. It will help spread the word that this is okay to experience and to have a part of life. Wild at Heart has been a magical healing power for us as a family and for so many other families. We can't actually even quantify what the social impact has been. But the fact is, for so many people, music, hobbies, all those wonderful other things that were talked about before, mindfulness, Pilates, whole of life activities, helps our health and well-being. And the more we can connect to that with each other, the more likely is that we can actually live far more contributing, positive and healthier lives. Thank you for your attention. Any questions?
Do you have any questions for Ingrid? Or we've got it for a little while longer?
I have a question. What are some strategies that employees could use if they want to speak to a colleague about mental health issues?
Okay, that's a good question, an important one actually for... The question was, how can employees and colleagues actually develop strategies, or what sort of strategies can we have to actually help each other have these conversations? I think the first thing to think about is knowing the people that are around us. You know, today we press send a whole lot of times. It's actually going back to our old communication styles, having a conversation, getting to know people beyond that they're a student over here or that they're a professor over there. It's about us knowing, what did you do over the weekend? What's your family like? So that you can actually start to have an idea of what the person is about. And you get to learn, oh yes, this is what they're like, and about their behaviours, about their feelings, about their thinking. So that down the track, if you start to notice changes in a person, as you get to know them. If you start to know that, well, Mary's got 3 kids, she's working in finance, she's got an elderly mum that she's looking after, or growing populations, so ageing populations, so we all have someone to care for. She's got an autistic child. You know, Mary's been coming in for years to work on time, looking fabulous. She's starting to now come in not caring for herself, not looking as well, not looking as well presented as she had been. And her work's starting to get a bit tardy. She's coming into work late. Maybe that's the time to go and have a conversation with her. Or actually say, look, why don't we go and have a cup of coffee? How's life treating you? And then start that sort of a conversation, developing that rapport with the person. Now, it might be that you don't feel comfortable with that conversation. And as we're on a journey learning about this, that's okay. Let's go find someone who is more skilled. Let's go find someone who might be able to help us. You've had your initial conversations and you keep saying, look, maybe you want to try EAP, or I'm worried about your health. Have you thought of going to a GP for a checkup? Those sorts of open-ended questions and ideas of where to go to for resources. Now, I should also add, probably the first time you have the question of how are you, the person might say, fine, thank you. And you're not sure, and you think, I'm not so sure about that. Mary, you seem to be struggling. I'm fine, thank you. There's nothing wrong. Actually, be prepared for that answer. And if you do keep asking, you might probably end up with the first few times being told, look, bugger off, I'm fine. You know, just leave it. So assume the negative the first time round, but keep that door of communication open. Because a lot of us still are ashamed to talk about these things. So if we know, oh, I had that conversation with Jackie the other week, I wasn't comfortable to tell her then, but you know what, I might go back now and have a chat to her now because I feel a bit more comfortable. That still might not happen. But then Jackie might be able to say, look, what if we go and have a chat over here, whether it's HR or whether it's EAP? It's about don't ignore the issues. Keep doing something. Keep finding other ways to help that person in a different range of doorways, you might say. Ultimately, there comes a point when we also have to accept there will always be a small group of people that don't want our help. We can't force people to have help if they don't want it. But in the main, what will happen is the person's going to feel relief that you asked them, that you cared, that you showed them that you cared and that you valued them. I hope that helps.
Any other questions for Ingrid? I think Ingrid will be sticking around for a little while longer after the presentation, so if you did want to ask a question, please feel free. Thank you, Ingrid. Before we conclude this morning, Jackie and Lucy from our team, from Oc Health and Safety and Swin Health, are going to come and talk to us about Journey Map. So over to Lucy and Jackie. Thank you.
I'm the health promotion nurse here at Swinburne. Thank you all for coming. It's such a gorgeous day. I just wanted to sort of tell you where this idea came from about having a Swinburne Mental Health or Swinburne Mental Health Week. A lot of the campaigns and Are You OK Day happen at the end of the year. I feel like the start of uni year is such a dynamic time that we really need to support students and staff. And so thinking about our mental health at the start of the year, like we do with our physical health, you know, we all make New Year's resolutions about weight loss and getting fit. I feel like we need to think about that with our mental health and really tapping into that, whether we need a little nudge. So the theme for our mental health is enjoy the journey, or enjoy your journey. So whether or not we have a mental health disorder, we are all on a journey. For a student, it's, you know, we want to get exams done, get the perfect job, meet someone, get married, all of these sort of things. It never happens like that. We're always going a step forward, 2 steps back. So it's taking that time to appreciate where we're at. Yes, it might not be a great day. Who can we go and get help for when we need it? But knowing that, you know, we're constantly working in a circle or zigzag line. I just want to say a few thank yous. There's so many people that collaborated on this. So of course Swin Health and the fantastic team we have there, OH&S and HR, you know, Jackie and Rita and Amy, of course. David, who's doing the filming here from Learning and Transformations Unit, who have just dedicated so much time to making the movies that we saw up there. There's also another one online with another researcher. I really urge you to check that out. And also the team from Web Support. This is not just for staff this week, it's for students. So we've got a lot of events happening tomorrow. There's a free breakfast for students. So if you see any students, encourage them to tap in and see what's around this week. I'd now like to invite Jackie to talk about our Journey Map, or the resource tool we've put together for you.
And thanks for coming out today. We're really proud of this week. One thing that I can say about Swinburne is that we've actually got so many resources available for staff and students. We're very fortunate. Not many workplaces have access to health services, to employee assistance programs, and here we've got quite a lot of resources I'll go through with you right now. If you're familiar with the staff intranet, it might not be a place that you go there quite often to check out the health resources, but we've got the mental health and wellbeing page. So in here we've got a few options for you and part of the journey, and if you've all got these little cards on the chair or around about you, they actually go through what resources are there available. So as part of Optimise Your Wellbeing, we've got a wellness plan that's available, and these are just templates, you don't have to use these, but quite a lot of people will put a plan together for their exercise. We think that at work and your mental health, particularly at work, everyone's going to go through stressful periods. So how are you going to utilise what's available and free to help your mental health at work? So these are just some examples of what you might fill out. As well as that, we've got, as part of Optimise Your Wellbeing, we've got meditation, the free meditation classes. We've got other resources as well, if you can go into the meditation section, thanks. There's actually a list of things, so the free meditation at Swinburne, Smiling Mind Online is a great free resource as well. It's a course. We've got some headspace meditations, and at the very bottom there's Mind the Bump, which is meditations for people expecting a baby. So these are all available, and they're just some links, and if anyone's got any additional ones they want us to put on there, feel free to let us know. As well as optimising your wellbeing, we've got things like flexible work arrangements, staff benefits, and even your leave entitlements. These are all available to you to help you reduce stress at work and find some work-life balance. As well as that, we've got the Get Educated, which is, we'll just go back there. Get Educated is about taking advantage of all the free workshops that are available. So the mental health first aid has been mentioned, but under your development you've got access to dealing with distressed and disruptive behaviours, adapting to change, communicating effectively, making the most of your work day. So there's so many different training programs available that you can attend for free. There are some online training videos which you can look at to do with drugs and alcohol at work, bullying in the workplace. And we've even got speaking with a professional, so that includes accessing Swin Health services and the EAP, which is the Employee Assistance Programme. It's available 24/7. It's completely confidential, and it's also accessible to your family members as well. So even anything from sleep problems, if you're having trouble sleeping, they've got sleep therapists there who can help you through that, and it's completely free. And just at the very bottom, there's the mental health research at Swinburne, so you can access the video that we just watched with Professor Greg Murray, and also another interview with Dr. Neil Thomas about his research on the experience of hearing voices. So if you're interested in those videos, you can access them there. And finally, the last part is reaching out. So if you do feel like you want to speak to a professional, or you know someone who might want to access support services, we've got a list of resources, so that can be the Employee Assistance Programme, Swin Health, the Chaplaincy, Lifeline, and other resources and links there. So all this information is available. If there's something that you didn't know about today, it's very likely that some of your colleagues won't know about it either, or may have forgotten. So I would take the opportunity to take these back with you and just remind your colleagues that all these resources are there. And if you've got any questions, to get in touch with HR and or Swin Health, and we'll help you through that. So thank you. Does anyone have any other questions?
Thank you, and congratulations, Sue. I'm going to go book myself into one of those elevation things. I did see that on the website last night, so I'll have to do that this week. Thanks everyone for coming along this morning. It's a nice way actually to kick off the week and to kick off Mental Health Week. I think you'd agree with me that all our speakers and the information that we've heard today is certainly brought to the front perhaps of our minds. The support services that we do have available here at Swinburne, we are very lucky. We are a place that really do show that care. And it's not just care on paper. I think everyone will agree with me when I say that. It is genuinely, there are so many support mechanisms available. And I think the other big takeaway for me this morning is the power of stories. So thank you, Ingrid, for sharing your story, which was so powerful, but also sharing it with each other, and I guess not being afraid, and acknowledging and recognising that stigma exists, and we're probably not going to be able to get rid of that anytime soon, but helping people through it. And the only way to do that is maybe start by sharing your own story in a way that respects you and your needs, but also can kind of support that person. So that role modelling that can actually be done, particularly when you're responsible for teams in the workplace. You don't have to have a formal leadership title to do that. It's by being a colleague and supportive to everybody else, you can actually take on that role. So thank you, Linda, and thank you, Ingrid, for your presentations this morning also. Thanks for coming along, everybody. I'd like to also let you know that our staff at Swin Health are generously doing blood pressure tests this morning. So if you do want to hang around to do that, please make your way down the back. Our staff are more than happy to do that, and check out how you're starting off the week. Hypothesis it'll be a bit low after Anzac Day, but maybe not. But please do take advantage of that service if you'd like to. There are so many events this week for staff and students. Please promote it through your teams. You've got the cards. Get your kids' colouring pencils out and do your little colouring mindful thing out there at the back. So we'll start that at work and take it at home. I know that I should be doing that too. We've got whole books of them at home. So user facilities are available. Use the services. Please hang around for some more breakfast. And thank you very much for coming along this morning. Really appreciate it. Have a great day and a great week. Thank you.